So my first attempt at experimenting with ethylene increasing the biosynthesis of mescaline, I did a separate experiment alongside it using the True Color product, and this time I'm going to attempt a variation of that first experiment. I'm going to be cutting these polymers, slicing them into smaller sections so it's a uniform concentration, I guess. And it'll be a control, and then two different treatments. One will be treated single application at 20 milliliters per liter, only one day, and then the other one will be treated, say, every 2 days for 2 weeks, and then I'll extract and see the concentration after an entire month. The first time I did a turnaround rate of only 2 weeks, since that's the average time it takes for the plants to utilize the organic acids applied through the True product, or the True Color product. So this time I'll see if a longer duration increases the content or not, and if multiple applications has any pros or cons compared to a single application, and then harvested 1 month after. And here they're cut. I'll be cutting them in, let's say, 6 centimeters length, and then shuffle them so there's a somewhat uniform amount in their concentration to start. So I'm doing the control here. I also left it in a 20-minute soak in just a water solution, just water, just to remove any possible variables. So if you watch my previous attempt on increasing biosynthesis of mescaline with ethylene, I also did it with this Foliar product, which was originally designed for this purpose, but I found it fairly effective at being a greening agent for the cacti. So in this experiment, I did 20-minute soaks for this one, which is going to be number 1. It's a single soaking at 20 minutes with 20 milliliters per liter solution, and it'll only have one application. I saved the bucket with the solution, and this will be repeated soakings every, let's say, every 3 days. I'll soak it again in the solution, and after 2 weeks I'll stop the applications, and I'll leave it all alone for another 2 weeks. So in total it'll be 1 month after this harvesting date, and after that month I'll dry everything, weigh everything, and we'll see if there's a difference in the alkaloid profile. So originally, in the first video I made, I did a traditional xylene extraction, and I washed the hydrochloric salts with isopropanol, and I considered only the insoluble salts to be mescaline. However, after more research, I also did a TLC plate where I spotted all of the different fractions of the salts, and it appears that like a majority of the alkaloids are mescaline in general. So originally I had the claim that ethylene increased the mescaline biosynthesis by around 73%. I think that's the number. I'll recheck and post in the video. And this product caused an increase, I believe, around 103% increase. But that was with the fallacy that the solubility of the mescaline hydrochloric salt was uniform. But I came to discover that even Shulgin, I think that's how you pronounce it, even Shulgin had trouble with hydrochloric acid as the acid salting agent, since it has a tendency to cause hydration issues. So the different solubility might be caused by that specific property of hydrochloric salt. I personally do think there is a difference. It is entirely possible that the effects that I had that were so noticeably different from 50 milligrams of the insoluble versus 100 milligrams of the soluble salts. It is entirely possible that it was placebo, but it was an incredibly strong difference. And I repeated it a few times, and if that's placebo, it's a pretty strong effect. But regardless, if you look at the original video, there was a total alkaloid increase, and that's what I'll be using as the reference point. So the control, let's say, was 0, and then the increase for the ethylene was, I believe, around 25% increase, and the True Color product caused an increase of around 33% increase versus the control. And the control was around, I think, 1.8% total yield, where the highest experiment was around 2.3, I believe. So the yield increase is far less than the proposed 103%, but I'm still waiting on a reply from Trout, and I still see the disparity between the traditional papers showing the yields and the accepted yields from CELO being pure, and even chemical testing facilities like Altitude. I emailed them to ask about their protocol, but I didn't get a email reply. But it's not a big deal. I just wanted to see what their process was as far as a DFAT or any other solvents they use. But it is entirely possible that let's say 90% of the alkaloids, if not more, is mescaline and trichoceres. So I'm just going to use a total yield as the measuring factor to compare them. In the future, if I am able to prove otherwise, I'll test it again, but that's how I'll be comparing the control versus the other experiments. So if you were to attempt this yourself using the same product, like I showed, you can use just make a solution and soak it. I did a 20-minute soak, and you can reuse that solution a few times, and it won't go rancid so quickly since there's no organic material. Maybe a small amount is removed through the soaking, but it should be minimal. And since I chopped this up to make it a more uniform starting material, there may or may not be an increase or a decrease in the final yield. It may have caused the alkaloid to actually go into the solution, or it may cause an increase where it soaks up more of the solution versus just the foliar, and we'll see from there. So just to summarize everything, the control is just a water soak for 20 minutes. All of these were treated 1 day prior with a 1 milliliter per liter solution as a foliar for everything I applied to my plants. The number 1 is a single soak at 20 minutes of the 20 milliliter per liter solution. And number 2 will be a every 3 day soak for 20 minutes of the same solution that I already made. And I'll just repeat that for 2 weeks. The reason I use 2 weeks as a reference is while I was developing this and researching it through all the research papers, they almost uniformly show that 2 weeks is the time period for the plant to use up all of the organic acids that I added to this solution. So that's the figure I'm using. We'll see if after that time period, if it'll increase even more the alkaloid production or if it'll start decreasing. I won't be able to tell precisely with this since I'm doing a different experiment, but I can compare the yield increase using the first attempt to this one. And yeah, I'll update this in a month. I'll weight everything before drying to see the water loss, and I'll then dry everything and proceed with the extraction to do a comparison.